I watched a really great and creepy movie. It was PG-13, by the way. And I'm gonna give you a few clues which will probably help you find out what movie I watched. First one is that it came out on September 10th, 2014. Second is that it raised $37.1 million on the premiere of the movie. Third, it was written by James Dashner, which finally came out as a movie. What is it? The Maze Runner. This, I didn't read the book yet. I watched the movie first because the book is kind of expensive right now. Maybe it's because it's so popular. I don't know why, but all of these dystopian novels, The Giver, Divergent, The Hunger Games, all of those are super popular nowadays, so I just decided to watch it. I don't even know what it's about before I watched the movie, but then after, I was like, oh, this is a really fun and creepy book! So let me get started. This genre is action and thriller. Sorry, I like that song. There's action and thriller, and it's actually very creepy and scary, even though it's fun and contains one entire girl, teenage girl. And the specific thing about this, the unique thing about this, is that all of the major characters are teenagers, and that is one of the that has to do with the themes and why the author wrote this book in the first place, which I'm going to tell you at the end. So this Maze Runner, this is actually the book cover, the hard book cover or the paper book cover. And this kind of generalizes the whole book. It just shows a maze. You can't really tell, but if you can see closely, there are holes on this side and there are spikes on this side. And you would guess what that means. The spike goes in the hole, which you might die from. And there's spider webs, and it kind of gives like a creepy tone. But it doesn't actually go into specific detail. If you just looked at this, you would just think, oh, it's a person who runs a creepy maze. And this one, the movie poster, shows a lot more detail. It shows almost all of the main characters. The guy leading in front is Dylan O'Brien, who I should use the movie name, Thomas. And he is the main character of this because he is the one that finds the way out of the maze. Applause, applause, applause. There you go. And there are some few people in the back. It's really blurry, I'm sorry. The guy second is Newt. And he's kind of the right-hand man of Albie, who I will explain later because he's not in here because he died. Boo-hoo. This buff-looking guy here is Gally. Like, I don't even know how to pronounce the name. Gally or Golly. Weird name. But he's kind of like the antagonist. Even though he is part of the group, he kind of leads them away from going in the maze. He's like, oh, you have these strict rules. If you go in the maze and you're not a runner, which I'll explain later, then you have to get these punishments. And so he's like the buff guy who seems all strong, but inside he's like a chicken. He's chicken. And you can't really see this, but you should look at the cast later. There's an Asian dude there. Korean American. His name is Ki-hong Lee. Yeah, Ki-hong. There we go. And he plays the role of Min-ho, who is the leader of the runners. Now, I should explain who the runners are because I've said them a lot. The runners are 2 or 3 people that dare to go in the maze. So what happens is the maze, it doesn't show like the full view of it until the very end of the movie. But the maze, it has a little gate where it opens, right? And they are kind of trapped in this square where they come up in an elevator with no memory at all, not even their name, like how did they get here, what is this for? They come up and they just like, what's happening? So they come up in this elevator and they call it the box. They send the box every month with 1 new glider and supplies. So at first I'm like, wait, what's the point of trapping these teenagers here if you're just gonna make them survive? Like, they have to die or something. So I was kind of thinking evenly. Oh well. So this is the maze runner, and the runners, it opens the gate. Sorry, let's go back to the gate. It's closed for the night. As soon as the sun comes up, the gate opens. It's like makes a really loud sound and it opens. As soon as the gate opens, they have a limited amount of time, only about 5 hours, which may seem like a long time to you if you're studying for your finals, but it's a very short time if you're trying to live. So the gate opens, the runners go. The major purpose of the runners and the leader is Minho. They go inside the maze and try to figure out the patterns and how to get out. So it shows later in the book, and he only shows it to Thomas, but Minho has designed the whole maze. He has memorized every sequence, every pattern, and the maze turns every night. I don't know how it turns, it moves. So you can hear it move. It's like it's like really creepy and really loud. And they call it the maze moving and changing its path. But it turns out it's not changing its path. It's just doing a different thing that you will find out later, because if I tell you all, then it'll be a spoiler alert. So though that is the main purpose of the runners, and let's go to why the maze is dangerous. Well, first, it's a maze. It's a gigantic, humongous maze that's like 1 million feet tall, and you're like, how do I do this? And even if I have a paper maze, I'm like, oh, I can't do this. So think about it. You're in front of a humongous maze, and you have 5 hours or so to go through the whole maze, and you can never rest or you will be eaten. By who? By the other gladers? No, never, never. There are these huge, ugly, gooey, boogery monsters called the Grievers, and I don't know why, they're half covered slime and they're half mechanic. Weird stuff in this movie. You'll find out when you watch it. And the Grievers, they're like gooey spiders. They're like humongous gooey spiders with mechanical legs, and they have these like sharp teeth, and they have like super small eyes like Asians, and then like they're like rah! And then they eat anyone. They like literally eat them up if they're trapped in the maze. So let's go back to the maze, because this whole thing was confusing for me too. As soon as the gate opens, the Grievers are gone. The Grievers don't come in the day, because then it's a lot easier for the gladers to find them and kill them. So they have, the Grievers, the boogery monsters, have some kind of intel in their brains. Their brain kind of things. So only at night when the gate closes, and maybe some people, it happens a lot. Some people go in the maze and they never make it out. Maybe because someone died, someone got stung, I don't know, something happened, someone broke a leg. Those things naturally happen in even the real world. So when that happens, and there are maybe 2 or 3 people in the maze, the Grievers come. They chase them around. They're super big, they're super scary, they're super fast. So they go like while the people who are trapped in the maze have to keep running and running for them to not die. And it's a maze. There are no obstacles except for the maze itself. There's nowhere to hide. So once Minho and Thomas got stuck in the maze, gladly they survived, and that's when Albie died. Sorry, spoiler alert. So I'm just saying, this movie, this whole book, it's really confusing. Like, even when I watched the movie, I had to pay really close attention to it, because if you don't, you probably won't understand what happens. And 1 second there's Grievers everywhere, and 1 second someone dies, 1 second a girl comes up. So the whole plot is gladers, who are the teenagers that come up in the box. They're called the gladers, and they try to make a living off of the supplies that they get from Wicked. And Wicked is the society or the association that sent them there. So they're like, oh, Wicked. But then Thomas and this girl comes up. First time ever a girl came up. And in her hand is a note saying she's the last one ever. So I'm like, well, obviously that means that she's the last one and you're not going to get any more gladers. But then, like, the people in the story have to create some drama. They're like, oh, what is this? What is this? I'm like, can you not understand? She's the last one. I was kind of frustrated then. But then, so she is the first girl ever. So they're like, why is a girl here? And as soon as she comes up, she's like, Thomas. And she says his name. No, as I said before, no one has any memory come up the box. So as soon as they open the box, a person's there with supplies. They're like, what's my name? Where am I? Why am I here? But she didn't even remember her name. But she remembered Thomas's name. She said, Thomas. And Thomas was already creating a lot of trouble because he went in the maze when he wasn't a runner. And if you go in the maze and you're not a runner, you get punishments, says Gally. So this girl came up and she remembered her name in 5 minutes. She's like, my name is Teresa. And she would only talk to Thomas. I don't know why. The characters didn't know why. So they were like, how do you know Thomas? And so Gally started thinking this whole thing, why they're trapped up in the maze, is all Thomas's fault. And at the end, it shows that kind of is his fault. Because Thomas and Teresa are special characters. They're the main characters of this movie. Even though Teresa comes at the very end, they're still the main characters. Why? Because they worked for Wicked. So I was confused. I'm like, well, if they were with the Wicked group, why did they send them up? Because they were teenagers. And in the end, I'm like, this whole thing is a game? I'm like, ugh. It's like, it literally devoured me into the movie. I'm like, oh my god, what's gonna happen next? What's gonna happen next? And then someone dies, and then the end. So that's how the movie goes. And I don't want to spoil the whole plot for you, and this is gonna go on forever if I do. There's 2 things I really need to say before I wrapped up this review. The first thing is the author's purpose for and the director's purpose for creating this movie and the book. The second is the themes. I'm gonna start off with the reasons. And one of the reasons, I was thinking about it, there's only teenagers in this movie, except for at the end, there's an old grandma. So I was like, teenagers alone equals no parents. And without parents, there's trouble. And you might think, no parents, let's party, woohoo! But you're actually wrong. Because you actually seem to hate your parents. You're like, ugh, I hate my parents. Even though you came out of their thingamabob. So, your parents actually support you. They're there to support you, not to make you feel bad, not to make you feel angry. Even though they do sometimes, you make them feel more bad and more angry than they do to you. Trust me. Even though I'm not a parent yet, I know that. Because I'm an awesome person. So, there's only teenagers in this movie. I'm like, why would the author make such a horrible world for teenagers? I'm pretty sure James Dashner has kids of his own. So I was like, he is a cruel human being. But then I realized, maybe he's trying to emphasize the impact on parents. You hate your parents when they're nagging you to go brush your teeth like 5 times, go study, go play your instrument, don't watch TV. But when you actually step out in the real world, when you cross the imaginary line that's in your head with dragons and unicorns, then you face reality, where no one likes you, where everyone is picking on you, no one pays attention to you, and who do you have to go to? Your family. And even your family, your siblings are busy doing their work, your grandparents are old, they can't help you with anything, even like, they give you cookies and stuff. But you only have your parents to go to. So you go to your parents and say, I was wrong. Even though it hurts your pride, you have to do that. So it's emphasizing. Teenagers, when there's only teenagers, you seem like you want to have a party. You're like, oh yeah, no parents, I can do whatever I want. But not really. The box supplies them, the gladers, with food, with water, with essentials. But they don't have one thing that everyone needs in this life. Love. They don't have affection. They don't have attention. Even though it kind of seems like I'm talking about a diva, I'm not. Everyone needs love. Everyone needs attention. Everyone needs affection. Those are the 3 things that you need to live. Like, I'm not trying to be mean or biased or anything, but homeless people, they don't have a family, they don't have friends. That's why they're homeless. That's why as soon as they get money, they buy drugs. They don't donate the money to their family, they don't share it, they don't buy anything good with it. Why? Because they have stress from not receiving any love from their parents. So I kind of went on to this like Confucius psychology thing, but I'm just saying the author's purpose is that teenagers, yes, they are free in college. College is the best time of their lives, but they have to learn to listen to their parents. And now onto the theme, which is kind of like the author's purpose. One of the themes is perseverance. Best thing in all the books ever. Perseverance. Why? Because this dude, and he's actually very weak. Too weak. But he has brains, unlike Galley, who has no brains and just strength. So I was thinking about this. Would you rather have all brains and be a weakling, or would you be like the strongest man in the world and have no brains? So I was thinking about that. I'm like, well, do you want to be a nerd or do you want to be a jock? So I'm still thinking about that, Maybe because I'm Asian, it's kind of biased. I want to be a nerd. Then you can actually create mechanical things to make you stronger. And when you're just strong, you can throw things, climb things, break things. That's how I think of it. So that's one of the themes, perseverance, because even though he's weak, he has brains. With brains, you could do everything. You can create everything. So what he does is he has curiosity. He has perseverance and curiosity. He's saying, we got stuck here. But let's not think of this the negative way. Let's think of this the positive way. What if we have a purpose here? What if we are meant to go out of this maze? And in one of his dreams, he had a flashback of him working for the Wicked, and he remembers that it was a test. It is a test for teenagers, and it doesn't have anything to do with the parents right now, but it's just a general test for the teenagers, because while they were in the maze for 3 years trying to figure out how to get out, all of the parents, all of the relatives, everyone in the world, there was a disaster. It was on fire, there was hurricanes, tornadoes. That's why they sent them to the maze. They sent the smartest, the strongest people to the maze, so that they're saying, if they can figure a way out, then we can figure out how the brain works. Because what happened while they were in the maze was a disease spread out, and it went to the brain and it messed everything up. All the blood in the body dried out, and I saw it. It's disgusting. So their skin is purple because they have no blood anywhere, and they just stand there like this, dying. So they can't just let newborn teenagers and people who have so much to do in their lives just die from a disease. That's why they sent them to the maze. They try to do it for a good reason. That's why they sent up obstacles. That's why they said she's the last one ever when they sent up Teresa. They were trying to figure out this whole thing about how regular minds work without being affected by other variables like drugs or hate or love or anything like that, just how regular brain works. So that was the purpose of this maze, setting up. So he has the most perseverance. He tries to find a way through the maze. He knew that he was going to get punishment because he went in the maze and he wasn't a runner. But what happened was Albie got stung. He was about to die. Well, he did die. And Minho was there alone in the maze. He ran through the maze and he was there with Minho. So he has curiosity, but he doesn't have curiosity and say, oh, I'm curious. He wants to go in there and die for me. He's saying, I'm gonna go in there and die. It's better than doing here and doing nothing, absolutely nothing, just grieving and mourning. And I would rather die using my pride than having my pride this low, my self-esteem this low, and dying here doing nothing at all. He's saying that I would rather try dying. That's a great quote I just made up. I love myself. So, and the second theme is kind of like what I said, recalcitrance. And recalcitrance is like stubbornness. So, teenagers have a lot of stubbornness. they're recalcitrant to do anything. They're like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. They give short response answers to their parents. Do you want to eat? No. Do you want to eat? Yes. And their minds just suddenly change, and you don't know why. Even though the parents have gone through teenage life, generations have developed. Like, when my mom was a kid, this would be like a phenomenon. This would be like flying cars. Technology was like this big phone you have to hold up, and the wires goes like this much, and then telling you that, hello, grandma. You'll be like that. And now we have so useful technology. We have tablets, we have computers, we have PCs, we have TVs, we have cell phones, we have small cell phones, we have large cell phones like the Galaxies, and we have regular cell phones like the iPhones. I have an iPhone. So I'm just saying that it's hard to fight your stubbornness when you're a teenager, but try to listen to your parents, please, because yes, I don't listen to my parents a lot either. I'm just saying I confess, I have to admit, I can't deny that I always listen to my parents. I don't listen to them either, but sometimes I try. And you have to try just that little bit to make your parents happier. Because what happens if your parents get stressed? Then they can die from a heart attack. What do you have if you don't have parents? Then you go to the orphanage, and then the whole thing becomes a disaster, and you become some days. I'm like, ah! I over-exaggerate that. But once again, the two themes, the author's purpose: teenagers, be nice to your parents, okay? You can be stubborn, but be nice to your parents. Say good things like, oh mom, I'm gonna buy you Chanel and like so expensive handbags when you're old. And even though it's not true, you still make your parents feel happy. Go to your dad and say, oh dad, I'm gonna buy you an Audi, I'm gonna buy you a Benz and a Rolls Royce when you grow up, in like a Bentley. And he'll be like, oh really? And you just say yes. Don't be the mean kid that goes like, oh, I'm not gonna buy you anything because I'm gonna keep all my money for myself. That's probably what's gonna happen, but don't do that. Make your parents happy. Second, be curious. Being curious is good. Ask a lot of questions, all your teachers. You may seem like a nerd. People call you a nerd. But if you remember Bill Gates' 11 rules of life, first one, I don't even remember two of them. One is, life is unfair. Just because that someone calls you a nerd doesn't mean you're not a nerd. So just be who you are. And another rule is, this is really funny, be nice to nerds. Turns out you'll end up working for one. Bill Gates has respect for Asians. So I kind of got off topic there. But Maze Runner is a great movie, and I have to read the book. It's too expensive right now, so I'm gonna read it later. When it comes out of the libraries, and it's free. I'll borrow it. So I'm gonna tell you about the future books. This is a trilogy, if you didn't already know. The Scorched Trials is the second book. The movie is coming out on 2016, and The Death Cure, that looks scary, is the last but not least third book of the Maze Runner trilogy. And this movie wasn't made yet. But there's one interesting thing that I have to say about this. The Giver and the Maze Runner trilogy, it's kind of weird how they were written so long ago. Maze Runner wasn't written in 2014. It was written in 2009, 2010, and 2011. You were like, what? It's old people's books? No, it's not. The Giver was written in the 1900s, but it's not an old people book. So I think what happened is that once one book becomes popular, people start reading the other books that have stuff to do with that, like dystopian novels and teenager worlds. So that's kind of what happens in this whole teenage life book reading. So I'm just saying, watch The Maze Runner, read The Maze Runner. It's amazing, even though it's kind of scary. You have to kind of hold on to your mommy while you watch it. And that's another reason why you need your parents. You have to hold on to your mommy while you watch horror movies and thriller movies. So watch The Maze Runner, and I kind of went a little too long with this. But if you watch The Maze Runner, you'll actually learn a few things, not just like, oh, this movie's scary. This movie's fun. They're booger monsters. So watch this movie, and goodbye.